Suarez got some wrestling.
Coming up this weekend in her first action in 3 years, 8 months, and 17 days, we have the Ultimate Fighter Season 23 winner at strawweight, the former number 2 ranked fighter in that division, Tatiana Suarez, representing Extreme Couture, taking on Montana De La Rosa in a big-time matchup on this card this weekend because, Matt, as I said, you pull yourself back to 2019. The last time that Tatiana Suarez fought was back in June of that year. And I'll show you the rankings right there. Suarez was at number 2. She picked up a win over now Nina Nunes. And if you look at it, Matt, what do you think the number 1 song was back in June of 2019?
The Raptors won the title like that month. So I want to say Money in the Grave by Drake might have been popping then.
Old Town Road by Lil Nas X and
okay.
Billy Ray Cyrus. The number 1 movie, Secret Life of Pets 2. So a big time win there for Tatiana Suarez, was ranked number 2 in the division. But she's had neck issues throughout her career. Now, that was one of those things. It derailed her Olympic dreams of being a wrestler in 2012. She was having some neck issues. They found cancer, so then she really kind of had to switch things up. Out of that, she then kind of found herself into MMA. Undefeated record as it is now. She wins the Ultimate Fighter Season 23. But you look at the wins in the UFC. Win over Amanda Bobby Cooper. That was to win the season. She beats Viviane Pereira. She beats Alexa Grasso, who's going to be challenging for Valentina Shevchenko's belt in this division. She beat Carla Esparza. Took her down many, many times in that fight. And then, of course, gets the win over Nina Nunes. But again, for Suarez, multiple knee issues, multiple neck issues as well. I listened to an interview that she did about a month ago with Helen Yee. She kind of talked about that, but also she said in the past couple of years, like maybe 1 fight, maybe 2 fights at flyweight, then she's going to go back down to strawweight. When she talked to Helen, she said probably just the 1 fight at flyweight, then I'll go back down to strawweight. So interesting to see what we get out of her in a matchup like this. Talked about the fact that she's kind of bulked up with her legs just due to the fact of, you know, rehabbing the knee, so to speak. So you know how good of a grappler Tatiana Suarez is if you've watched her wrestle. She's a 2-time bronze world champion in freestyle wrestling at 121 pounds. And boy, like, if you just the fight against Carla Esparza. Esparza was a champ before that and became a champ after that, and she drubbed her in that fight.
This fight's going to look exactly like that fight if Tatiana Suarez is even 70% of the fighter she used to be. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Montana De La Rosa, but again, I brought this example up many, many times. Tatiana Suarez, is a world-class wrestler. I think we can all agree on that. It was an illness that caused her to not go to the Olympics. If she is an Olympic-caliber wrestler, I think that's fair to say. Montana De La Rosa is a national wrestler just in America, and she's not even like a multiple-time champion at that. Carla Esparza is one of the better women's MMA fighters we have ever seen. I know that's kind of wild to say, but she has won a championship on 2 separate occasions. Like, she is one of the more credentialed women's MMA fighters we've seen in a long time. And you know, she's won the majority of those belts and those fights, all with her grappling and her wrestling. And I'm glad you brought it up because that was the fight I really wanted to focus on. If Tatiana Suarez fights another pure grappler, that's how a lot of these fights are going to end up. Because here's the thing. If you're a primary striker who has really good takedown defense, you are going to test Tatiana Suarez because you excel at the one weakness in her game. We saw that in the Nina Nunes fight. That was something I brought up a lot. It was, hey, Suarez is going to look good, but if she doesn't get the finish, it's going to be a little bit curious to see how she looks in the 3rd round. Because the one thing about Nina Nunes is, hey, she has great long-range kicks, and she has really good cardio at that weight class. Now, did Suarez struggle in the 3rd round of that fight? Yes, she did. But I don't think Montana De La Rosa is going to have the long-range abilities on the feet that someone like Nunes is able to.
De La Rosa, big 3rd round knockdown against Mara Romero Barella. That was a win that De La Rosa has on her record. But for De La Rosa, well-rounded, good with her grappling, good with her submission ability. We've seen her train with a lot of great women in the past. So for majority of her camps, it's been between Elevation Fight Team, but also Genesis BJJ. And we've seen Jinyu Frey train there as well in the strawweight division. But for De La Rosa in the UFC, came in off the Ultimate Fighter Season 23. So a few seasons after Suarez. She's 5-3-1 since that 2017 debut. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt for De La Rosa. And again, if you look at it for the boxing, De La Rosa has an advantage there for sure over Tatiana Suarez. But for the Suarez fight that she had against Carla Esparza, a couple of side kicks, and then 25 seconds in, she goes for the first of 9 takedown attempts. She ends up with a finish in that matchup. And for Suarez, too, like you talk about some of the gyms, whether it's Millennium MMA or it's been Extreme Couture for a very long time. You see who she's with on Instagram. Patchy Mix, that guy's a pretty good grappler.
Very.
And the crew that they have at Extreme Couture, and I know a lot of people, they're saying, oh, well, I'd like to see if Casey O'Neill fought Aaron Blanchfield. Well, Tatiana Suarez is going to spend time training with Casey O'Neill at Extreme Couture, and Suarez has been there at Extreme Couture for quite some time, and I'll throw it up there. The last time we did a video on Tatiana Suarez, that was like 2 or 3 studios ago. You had short hair. Everything was different. The world was just a different place. But for Suarez, a good opportunity to try and right the ship, and we've seen somebody with a long layoff like this come back after years away from a dip. It was Tyson Pedro. And they gave him fights against Ike Villanueva and Harry Hunsucker before they gave him Modestas Bukauskas.
Was it Georges Danho? Was he the guy heavyweight?
The Man Mountain, Georges Danho, with a big win over Jorgen De Castro.
I'm proud of myself for remembering that.
A good opportunity for Tatiana Suarez. She's a massive favorite in the fight. And I'm not even going to guess at the Topology votes.
Over 95%.
Yeah, I would say they're going to be over 95%. They're 96% out of 701 total votes. I do think Tatiana Suarez wins the fight. I'm eager to see how the neck injury, the knee injuries, just the constant battle and the grind has been for her. But really glad to see her back in a fight like this because she doesn't leave herself in a lot of compromising positions on the ground. So unless her cardio completely falls off, because again, Nunes was able to rally, like you said, in that third round. I do see her getting a victory in this fight.
I worry about Suarez basically just holding up throughout her MMA career, if I'm being completely honest. And you hate that that's the one thing that you worry about more than her skill set or more than how she's going to look against a lot of her opponents, because she does remind me a lot of, remember when American Kickboxing Academy had that terrible run where it was Kane would get hurt, DC would get hurt, Luke Rockhold would get hurt, and it was, hey, you're training so hard with all these world-class guys, you're bound to get hurt at a certain point. For Suarez, she does remind me a little bit of that Jacob deGrom factor. It's, hey, you're almost too talented for what your body can actually withstand. So for Suarez, hopefully we can see her a lot more in the UFC Octagon. Hopefully we can get 2 or 3 performances every single year, because watching her grapple really is a special thing to witness. Very high level ground and pound, great submission ability. I highly recommend you go back and watch that Alexa Grasso fight because it was dominant. She gets her down,
it was over very quick.
Gets her down, takes her back, chokes her out like it was nothing. So I do think Suarez is going to look pretty good in this weight class.
Both of us going with Extreme Couture Zone Tatiana Suarez to get the win in the matchup. The next fight on the card, a guy who hip thrusted his way to a win, taking on a guy who is on a slide. It's Augusto Sakai taking on Dante Almeida. You're not going to want to miss. Keep locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.